I am your brother in Christ, and welcome. Today we will be looking at this massive online apologetics movement that we're seeing bloom, and how can each Christian watching this video take part in this apologetics empire.
Today we have a very special guest, Vocab Malone.
So first of all, let's go ahead and go through our intros, talk about our ministries, and how these people can find us. So I'll go ahead and start, and we'll just go down the line. So I am your brother in Christ. I do Christian YouTube videos. You can find me on Minds, BitChute. Let's see, Minds, BitChute. My brain is farting. I spent all day setting this up. Minds, BitChute, also on Gab. And we have now just set up our Patreon. Well, my Patreon. She has her own.
And I am Elle, Elohim. I specialize in creating illustrations, writings, and songs, all for the glory of God, and to really dive into the scriptures, put practical applications out there, and to better our relationship with Jesus Christ. So that is a little bit about what I do. Lately, I've been focusing on the superheroes of the Apologetics Empire. And what about you, Vocab?
Vocab Malone is my name. I used to rap a lot. Now I rap a little. And I really transitioned into apologetics. Out of evangelism is kind of how that happened. And now especially urban apologetics, focusing on number 1, Hebrew Israelism, number 2, Islam, number 3, everything else. And so it's been good to really exercise that on social media, trying to realize what platforms work. And so for me to do apologetics on social media, that includes YouTube, and that includes comedy and edge and satire, yet still being serious. And one thing I love to do is to stop, collaborate, and listen. So I work with David Wood and a bunch of other idiots, and we have a lot of fun, but hopefully communicate truth with comedy as partially the vehicle for the education. So here I am, Vocab Malone.
Woo! So you mentioned Hebrew Israelism. Do you want to go ahead and explain a little bit about what that is?
Sure, they love when I do that. Hebrew Israelism is a copycat idea from Anglo-Israelism, which taught back then, way in the late 1700s, and it got really popular in America, like in the 1930s, that people of the British, Scottish, Irish, and other European continents and their ancestors, so a lot of people in America, were actually the true Israelites scattered abroad, and they would go to Deuteronomy 28 and other passages to try to prove that. Now, the Black Hebrew Israelites do the same thing, sort of a mirror image. They use the latter half of Deuteronomy 28 to try to prove that they are the true Israelites, and some Hebrew Israelites utilize other things such as a warped view of history and pseudo scholarship and things that sound alike in different languages that really have nothing to do with each other, but they sound similar to the human ear. So therefore, there must be some connection. A lot of conspiracy theories have been involved. Anti-Semitism is always in the mix, and a backwards reading of the Bible. So if that's, all it was, hey, we're the real Israelites, wouldn't be such a big deal. But all of a sudden, you got to keep the law. All of a sudden, we don't believe in the Trinity. All of a sudden, we're not sure what we mean when we say Jesus is God, if we even do say that at all. All of a sudden, if you look the wrong way, you have a lower place in the kingdom. Problem after problem after problem. And now you don't have anything that looks like the gospel, even though it's claiming to be Bible-based. So it's growing. And folks like myself, we deal with the ideology bit by bit and piece by piece until one day we'll have blown and blown and there'll be no house left standing.
Sounds awesome.
Sounds great to me. So what should every Christian know about them?
Well, I think Christians should realize these ideas have been present before. And that's kind of how I began my last answer. I think it helps people see this isn't just, what we have now is kind of the latest version of this Israelism idea. And Israelism you could define it different ways, but there's this idea that Israel is central in a way that the new covenant, I think, does not attest to. So it's really focused on the ethnic group at hand, and different groups of people have wanted to become that ethnic group. Now, when we first started out Christianity, right, the people making a big deal out of that were actually Jews. They were Israelites, the Judaizers in Galatians, and on. You kind of be like, you Gentiles, it's cool, man. You're down with the Messiah, of our old scripture. That's great, man. But you're not circumcised. And, our people have been getting circumcised a long time. Abraham was older when he had to do this. Do you think God would make an old man get circumcised plus his household unless it was a big deal? You can't just come along, and because you happen to be Greek or Roman, just be like, well, I don't need to be circumcised. So it's good you accept the Messiah. That's important. But you can't make up your own new religion. You know what I mean? Jesus, he was circumcised. You need to be circumcised too if you're really in this faith, if you're really serious. And by the way, stop eating pork and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They started putting the law on them, right? Now, they were actually Israelites, and they held themselves in higher esteem because of their historical pedigree. Paul dealt with that. Peter had to shake that off like Mariah Carey, but we've got new versions like Black Hebrew Israelism and the Anglo-Israelites before them. And there's other actually movements like that. The Hebrew Roots movement are somewhat similar. Fringe elements to the Messianic movement, such as the One Law movement, are similar. So this is running around. And what happens is, before they had to subscribe to a newsletter or hear some random guy speak or pick up a pamphlet. Now, click, 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 click. Oh, I'm an Israelite. After 3 clicks, they realize they're an Israelite. And so these things spread faster, and the Christian church is kind of doing its thing, moving along. Oh, we got to, take care of the child care workers, and they got all these issues, right? And that's important. I used to be on staff, so I know what's up with all that. But we're kind of not always realizing some ideas that we think are silly are taking hold, and we better take them serious. Just like Mormonism. You could say Mormonism is silly. They believe in XYZ. But it would, back then when it first sprouted up, it's important to take it serious back then. And it's important to take it serious now because these ideas affect people's eternal souls. So with Hebrew Israelism, I just want to make Christians aware that it's been here before in different versions. And so we don't need to be so scared of how foreign it might seem at first. And also that we need to take it serious regardless of what we really personally think of it. We need to shake that off and have humility and realize we've been deceived before too. And so it's not just only a laughing matter. Although I like to point one of the doctrines. Now I do that to help people who are in it hopefully see these doctrines are silly, right? But also I get serious. We mix sort of lay level accessible scholarship in a sense with comedy. So it's a bit of variety, not for everybody, but I just want people to know, even if you're not out there dealing with Hebrew Israelism, if you never heard of it, the issues at stake are still very relevant. And all you got to do is go back to Galatians 2. So before you say, well, I've never heard of that, that's silly, who would believe that? Only realize these versions of these kinds of heresies have been around forever. And so it's good for all Christians, regardless of what they know about it or not, to be familiar with the basics so they can deal with these counterfeits. You know what I'm saying? Because after Hebrew Israelism, there'll be another thing and another thing and another thing. And we don't know which ones are going to stick around. In the 7th century, they didn't know Islam was going to blow up, right? Pun intended, but it did, right? But then you have other things like, Zoroastrianism, which are almost gone. And they were massively important back in the day in Persia. And now they're almost gone. So we don't know which is which, right? So I think it's kind of like grow where you're planted. You know what I mean? What's in your context, you deal with it. And again, pray for people who are in the fight, even if you're not. And subscribe to my channel. That'll help.
Definitely. And you did an awesome video about the roots that you were talking about last night. So if anyone wants to check that out, hopefully we can get that in the comments. That should help. Besides those videos and the awesome content on your channel, what are some other resources that help illuminate Hebrew Israelism?
Well, I do have a book. It's called Barack Obama versus the Black Hebrew Israelites. The book's not political. It's not about Obama. That is a catchy title to make you remember it. So just deal with it, people. People do that. It could have been introducing Hebrew Israelism, right? That could have been the title, but that's a lot more boring in my opinion. So Barack Obama versus the Black Hebrew Israelites, it is. It's Vocab Malone. You can buy it on the book patch, and you can also get it on Amazon. And it's available Kindle, PDF, all those formats, of course, physical, and it's kind of just an intro to give you the lay of the land. I try to make it interesting and relatively accessible reading, and a lot of resources, especially towards the back of the book. The first part of the book is more narrative. The latter part of the book is more resource driven. And so it's a helpful tool, but I'm working on a second one. Will it ever come out? Only the Lord knows, because I spend so much time editing YouTube videos. I can hardly find time to write a friggin' paragraph. But one day it will happen by God's grace. You know what I mean? Maybe he'll give me coronavirus, and then I'll be well enough to work on the book while I'm doing it or something like that. Who knows, right? There's that. And, I'm not the only one. There's a lot of other people coming up that are doing good work in this area. Adam Coleman, Damon Richardson, Nefertiti. I used to roll with the thing. We called it Soldiers of God. Then after that, Shield Squad. So there's all these little alliances and underground guys and gals doing great work on it. And so finally, there's starting to be some answers, because this is one of many alternative urban spiritualities, and plus conferences. Obviously, not a lot of conferences happen right now, but we just did one earlier this year called Cyber City, which was all virtual. And that took place a lot on my channel, but on some other brothers and sisters channel. You can go to the Cyber City. cybercityconference.com is the website to get the resources for that. And so a lot of stuff has happened, and it's keep on happening. So that's why the support people have been given through Patreon is helpful, because this is very grassroots. It's really going to be, will the people help make it happen? And so far they've been doing it, and we've been going. So it's nice.
Good. I'm so glad that you plugged your book, because if not, she would have.
Yeah.
She was so going for that if you didn't do it.
Wouldn't bother me a bit.
She has been reading it as much as she can.
Yeah, I think it's really helpful. It's really crazy. I never knew before I found your channel about how intense it really was, because I was one of those people that if I had ever heard of it before, it was just haha, whoever would believe in that stuff. But no, I mean, it's serious to people, and we need to realize that. And I think that book really helps. So
yeah, just think about the ideas in Islam. A lot of them you might be like, really?
Yeah.
Really? They believe that? Drinking camel urine?
But it's important, I mean, because people's, souls are at stake here. So there we go,
And that's the whole purpose of us doing everything we do.
Yeah. And giving kind of a tribute to Ravi Zacharias, one of the things that we're kind of touching on a little bit here that he did a lot is we got to remember the questioners behind the questions. So
That's good. That's exactly right.
So let's go ahead and switch over to this Apologetics Empire.
Yes.
Apologetics Empire. Well, what do you guys want to know about it? What's your what do you guys think it is?
Well, that's the good question. So, you being one of the founders of this Apologetics Empire, according to David Wood, what is your vision for it? No pressure.
We're finally getting to a place on YouTube. And we can say social media in general, where there's a few heavy hitters. And I kind of mean that in the sense of influence, right? It's not about who's better. It's nothing like that. It's just certain people's stuff and the way they frame things takes off on certain platforms. Primarily, we're talking about YouTube here, right? But there are other social media platforms. We had a meeting earlier this year, and one of the men spoke at length about Instagram and how to do things on there, and you kind of realize, whoa, it's like an entirely different animal, And but we want to consider those things, but at the same time, there's a realization that focusing helps, and so we're really focusing there on YouTube. So you're starting to finally see some people getting some decent sub counts, some decent videos that are responding to all these atheist attacks, and they've really got a head start on us, when you look at apologetics online, and we're kind of catching up slowly but surely. And so what it is Apologetics Empire is the idea that some of those folks who are in the fight at the forefront, and those who are trying to come up, be part of that fight in more serious ways, get together and share ideas. How do we make better thumbnails and titles? I'll give you a quick example. Interview with Greg Koukl. That's cool. Who knows who Greg Koukl is? The people into apologetics. So think of something else. You can put his face on it. You can say, I mean, you can put it in the description, but you need to try to think, how do I get people who are not already into this?
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? Interview with the man who teaches you how to ask questions. I don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but you see what I'm saying? Something, you kind of think of these ideas and you realize we're in this kind of little weird bubble, and so we're addressing people and we're dropping names, and we don't realize like we're not just trying to talk to people who are already into apologetics. And so we try to think how to branch out past that. So we're trying to help each other, right? And then you have people come along and say, well, here is a way to do apologetics in relation to current news events. Now, that's not for everybody, right? But some people, that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to be part of. And so we help each other learn how to do that. And everyone needs to at least have ability about how to integrate apologetics in current events, even if that's not their kind of their stilo, right? So John McCrae is a perfect example of that. Another example, what do you mean? Another example is like, all right, how do we make our stuff look better? So Cameron Bertuzzi comes and he makes the stuff look really good, and he's like, okay, here's some ideas about how to make your stuff look better, right? And everyone may not do exactly what he does all the way, but you definitely want to know that information. So it's that kind of open sharing. See, because we're not perfect, we don't all agree with each other all the time, whatever, right. But we can have more unity, I think, than the Kemet's, that's a conscious community folks, the atheists, and everyone else, because they just always end up fighting with each other. And Christians should have somewhat of an ability to not do that. And so we have to realize, hey, this is kingdom building. We get it. There's a certain form in which we could say this is competition. But we realize ultimately there's a bigger goal here. So let's get together and link up. And so far, so good. We're learning a lot. People are coming up, and now there's a new crop, and there's younger guys coming up, and more ladies are getting involved. And so it's really cool to see. And then people are branching out into things like TikTok and all that. And so it's good to see. So the idea there is just to kind of make a splash, make a dent, and have some synergy and momentum together. And I've been very happy to be part of it. And I've seen a lot of good things, especially behind the scenes. We got a couple group me message groups where we, trade ideas and make fun of each other and stuff like that. And we even had this YouTube conference. When I say YouTube, I don't mean it was going to be on YouTube. I mean, most of the speakers were going to be YouTube apologists. And, coronavirus had other plans, but we had this thing where almost all the speakers were going to be YouTubers, which is very different. You've never seen an apologetics conference where the bulk of the speakers are mainly, essentially, the reason they're known is from YouTube, right? So that is something we still want to do, but we shall have to revisit that issue now and see when's a better time. So stuff's still happening. And again, I'm glad to be part of it, even if I can, I'm kind of I'm kind of the caboose, I'm sort of the back of the train, and because of the obscure stuff I deal with, I get it. I'm not going to be, number one, number two, number three, number four, but I'm glad to be around. I'm glad to be hanging around, you know what I'm saying? And so that's all right. Cause I'm kind of going to do what I do no matter what. To an extent, I'm kind of stubborn that way. And so I hope people pay attention, but at the same time, I'm like, I got to do it anyway, And so that's what it is, at least for me. But it's good to see people coming up, especially my man. I'll give you a perfect example. Adam Coleman, True ID Apologetics. You look at his stuff, he's been involved and just so much improvement. And he's like the perfect apologist in so many ways to me. And, it's good to see more and more people just coming up. You just, you kind of smile and you're glad and you're just glad to watch it happen in a sense, and be part of it. So it's exciting times.
And I think you touched on some really important stuff in there that I don't want to breeze over too much, because you touched on unity. And I think that's one of the most important things in this Apologetics Empire, because as Ephesians 4 and Paul emphasizes so much, like, we need to be unified. We're all under the same God. Well, all of us Christians who are truly following him. And we need to do this mission together because we each have our pieces and parts. Like you said, you have such a niche specialty, but it's so important, and so many lives are impacted by the work that you do. But not everyone dives into what you do. But that doesn't mean they're any less important just because they're a foot or an eye or an ear or any of that. And so I love looking at you as an example, and hoping that we can all hopefully step up a bit.
Agree, and again, I'm just happy to be part of it. And it's cool to see, I mean, I have sort of, my own things I like to see happen. I really want to see urban apologists, so-called, be integrated more into the mainstream kind of conversations. I want to see that. I also want to see more kind of art. And when I say art, I kind of mean it in a broad category. Yes, LGBT art, and that's an example, which is great. I mean, sort of, that's an example of what I mean, but sort of the creatives being involved with apologetics as well. So you have like this creative aspect that hopefully touches the emotions and the eye and the ear, but also, is also hitting people's thoughts, so to speak. I like to see more of that. And, I mean, I have a certain, hey, I believe in unity, and I know everyone's not on the same page, but, I do have things that I think are helpful for apologetics. And so I like to at least have it be part of the conversation, not shoving it down people's throats, but Reformed theology and presuppositional methodology in a certain ministry. At least like to people being able to have a conversation about it, not trying to force anything on anybody. But those are things I talk about as well. They're not the most important, but they're part of what I discuss as well. And I think that's important for people to be able to do as well. And then one other thing I've become interested in recently, and I haven't done too much with it, is kind of the folks on your guys' end of the spectrum as far as age. So I recently did a show where I called it Apologetics Youth Empire, and everyone on there was like, I think 18 to 29. They're all younger guys and stuff like that, doing apologetics in different platforms, and that was cool to talk to them and see what they're doing. So I want to kind of keep an eye on that too, because I think that's good news.
And that was really epic, actually, for us too. Yeah. So since we saw that video, which was super funny, because I was like super not feeling good, about to go to sleep. Then I saw your video and I was like, oh, it's vocab. I got to jump on there for a couple minutes, and then ended up staying the whole time. And we're pretty actively involved in those Discord communities now. And it's been really awesome to see that, youth apologetics empire to grow. And so that's been a really cool opportunity. And I'm actually doing an interview with 2 of those guys in the next 7 days as well. So
good
for, bringing that into the light and helping that community grow as well.
So on that note, what can Elle and I do to further the Apologetics Empire?
Well, I mean, really, it's kind of like basically making good content, and just kind of consistently doing it and just plugging away. And like, that's really sort of, I don't know, it right now, because the idea is to inspire and encourage, and to an extent, maybe educate, we're all educating each other, folks, and then kind of see who takes to it and who does what. And then kind of we sort of revisit these issues down the road and see, all right, who can we work with and how, you know what I mean? And so really it's about just sticking in there for the long haul, because, gaining 1,000 subs is a hard, bump to get over. You got to do that. And then you got to keep on improving things. And then you gotta, so this is like this war of attrition almost. So really just keep on plugging away and doing that. I mean, that's really the most important thing. And we're kind of, I don't know, I don't necessarily know what step 2 is. I mean, a lot of the ideas we had sort of have been put on hold, you know what I mean? But that doesn't mean it's permanently, like that forever, And so we're kind of in a holding pattern, as it were. But, it'd be interesting to see what transpires at the end of this year, because I do know some of us are getting together, I believe in November in Rhode Island. And so we'll kind of reconnect there and see what's popping.
Now, is that for a conference, or is that just
sort of? This is the academic side of things. Every group of professionals, I guess is the way I could put this, has professional societies, and these professional societies check each other. They bring new ideas into the community, right? They have trade journals, this kind of thing. It's sort of a common thing, whether you're a dentist or an archaeologist or someone involved in the highest levels of logistics management, Evangelical theologians have something. Evangelical Theological Society, aka ETS. It has an annual meeting. A couple thousand people. It's not huge, obviously. Get together once a year, read papers to each other, buy books, make connections, et cetera, et cetera. And a number of the YouTube folks out of us who are interested in that sort of thing, we get together and hang out with these scholars. It's kind of like our version of rock stars. Hey, there's Tom Schreiner. He wrote that book on New Testament theology, and oh, look, that kind of thing, right? And so we do all of that. And that's a place. So it's not like an apologetics conference at a church. There's like a high level nerdy, thing. And, anybody with certain credentials, you got to agree to a statement of faith and pay dues, can be an ETS. Just go to the website and see what it is. And then if they decide, they can also go to the annual meeting, right, as well. But it's not your normal apologetics conference. Like, it doesn't have the popular speakers necessarily, although some of them will be there. It's more like has the guys who the popular speakers learn from. And so you go, and everyone there is like knowledgeable in their field, but they may not be necessarily the most like engaging, but you're there for information and stuff like that. So it's a different kind of thing, because you're essentially hearing papers read, but you're kind of hearing cutting edge stuff in the world of evangelical, theological, and philosophical debates. And then at the end of it, they usually will have some apologetics conference as well, sort of at a local church. And the idea there is, since we've already got these apologists in town, let's do a conference together. If we can find a church that can put up the money, because it's very expensive, because they're not cheap to put together. So it doesn't always happen, but hopefully it'll happen again this year. And so there is a apologetics conference at the end of it. But usually when I say we, I mean kind of like my little merry band of men. They're usually not speakers. We just kind of go and hang out, because we're already in town. So yeah, anybody could kind of go in a sense. I encourage them to go. They'll be exposed to good information and good academics,
That sounds awesome. So thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And you said that's the ETS.
Yeah. Let me see. Tell me, let me see what the Evangelical Theological Society. It began like in the late 40s. Yeah, ETSJETS.org. And the reason why it's JETS, because they have a journal. It's called the Journal of the Evangelical Theological Society. And you just go there, and the website is not meant to impress you. It's just meant to give you information. And then you can kind of see what's going on, and then you can try to join in the fun. The next one is, let's see here. Let's see. Yeah, the next one is in sometime November. I'm trying to find out when the annual meeting is. There we go. November 17th and 19th, 2020. And the program theme is Christianity and Islam. So that'll be.
Ooh, that sounds so good.
Yeah, so that's good stuff. You got it. Yep.
Where's that going to be located?
Rhode Island, right?
Providence, Rhode Island. They switched it around every year. Yeah, it changes places every year. But yep, that's it.
Yeah, that's totally something that sounds like my cup of tea, because I love research and diving in, and especially Islam and Christianity, I would say, are the two religions I know the most about. I know about Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons too, and I'd like to dive in a bit more into apologetics in those fields, but Islam and Christianity is what I've been focusing on lately. But for those who that's not necessarily their cup of tea, what are some suggestions for how everyone can get involved in the Apologetics Empire? Because we do all have our own giftings, like I was talking about earlier.
If there's somebody involved who's kind of in, I don't know, the official group or whatever, I think the best thing is to try to just make yourself known to them. So, maybe become a moderator on their channel, maybe become one of their patrons, these kinds of things. I've seen you guys do some of these kinds of things, and you kind of just let it be organic, because it's not going to be some automatic thing. It's sort of like slowly but surely, and then we see what's what. I doubt, honestly, if I would even be involved unless I had a close connection with David, I mean, maybe I would. But if you look, I mean, you got John McCrae, he's got 50,000 subs, and then everyone else has even more, what I mean? So it's like, I'm sort of at the bottom end of that if it's just sub count, right? And so it's just like this slow process of getting to know people and continuing to do good work. And so I would say, if you're like, hey, these are people that I see what they're doing and I'm down with this, I would say, like, try to be involved in some way in the ways you can be involved. And I do think there's something to be said for sort of, making yourself available and being present and kind of having a humble attitude and supporting people whose work you believe in. And then one day, it'll be where, you're, quote, in their position and they'll be gone, and there'll be people younger than you and people coming out, wanting to do the same thing with you. So you just come around, try to get involved, become moderators, become patrons, things like that, make yourself known, help, I think that's a good way. But, this is to everyone watching. One thing not to do is, it's one thing to be persistent, but it's, you also don't want to be a bugaboo. You don't want to be asking like, hey, every week, hitting up Frank Turek. Hey, can you be on my show? Hey, can you be on my show? It's like, it's like there has to be sort of a within reason kind of thing where you realize, because you kind of realize even if you did get, say you bothered, somebody bothered Frank Turek for a year straight and they finally interviewed him, you realize that one interview doesn't really make or break a channel, and you kind of see like, okay, it's a bump, it helped, but really it's long term your content you're doing. And the next thing you know, people hit you up and they want to be on, they'll want to be the ones we on. One thing I sometimes tell people to do, and it's maybe a little bit different because it's sort of Christian ministry, and so I get that. One thing that they say though in some of these YouTube tutorials, they'll say try to collaborate with people who are sort of roughly in your, as far as who you kind of expect to be like, yeah, let's do it, roughly sort of in your general area. So you hit somebody up and it's like, you understand, you're like, you're in a similar place, and that's the best way to do it, because then the cool thing is you actually kind of grow together as you're going. And again, these things all change. Norm Geisler died somewhat recently. R.C. Sproul died somewhat recently. Ravi Zacharias died somewhat recently. What I mean by that is the apologists and theologians who dominate for literally decades with massive media ministries, eventually they leave a legacy behind, but they're gone. And the question is like, who's next? Who did they train? Who did they work with? And then it's the time, And so there's a certain level of just kind of like patience and just grinding away. And you realize like, everything's going to change, in the sense of like the platforms are going to change, the questions are going to change, what they allow us to do on social media is going to change, all this stuff changes. And then, TikTok's not the final new social media platform, you know what I mean? So it's popular, but remember, it's almost like, it almost seems like a distant memory that things like Vines were around, which is sort of the predecessor to TikTok, or Snapchat. Snapchat's not really hot like it was, right? It's crazy. You just don't know. And so my point is like, we got to be adapted and moving and all that with things that go. Don't just look at what's already there, kind of think, okay, what's going to happen? What's next? And position yourself for those things. And I think if people kind of have that long-term vision and they don't kind of think there's a quick, easy fix, I think that'll really serve them well, because then they won't get disappointed with the little, things where someone doesn't hit you back or it doesn't work out. You kind of just have this long-term vision and realize, it'll come around again. It'll work out. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of it just has to do with attitude, man, because you see a lot of people come and go. A lot of it has to do with their sort of attitude about how they're in this thing, because it's easy to get bumped off, once things get rough, as they do. Your videos are going to get taken down. Atheists are going to come after you, XYZ, right? Mm-hmm. And so what's your attitude? That's going to really affect your ability to sustain long term, And so be a happy warrior is how I would end that answer to that question.
That, and also keeping your eyes focused on Christ, what you're actually doing this for. I think that's a huge advantage we have over a lot of other channels. If they're whatever they're doing, that's not Christ oriented. If we're Christ oriented, we're keeping our eyes on him. And even if we pass away, what we built as far as the lives that we've touched, the ministry that we've done, could inspire and move others to do even greater things than what we did. In just a moment here, I need to focus on this one comment here.
Yeah, man, you got to stay focused.
Life would be so nice as to introduce this individual.
This is Brad Robinson, and he is the wonderful man who actually drew Ravi Zacharias in the last video I did on my channel. And everyone on here was loving on him and asking how to find him, saying his art was awesome because it is epic. So yeah, guys, that's who this is, and make sure you show him some love because he's awesome. But yeah, he said, Elle, I would love to see stuff on Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormonism versus Christianity. So yes, that will definitely be in the queue. I've gotten so many requests lately from you guys, and I really appreciate it, but that is definitely on the list. So I look forward to that. And Roxby actually said, I think seeing an interview on Scientology versus Christianity would also be interesting. And
Roxby wants to hear about Scientology. Well, Roxby, I don't remember you telling me that before. Have you already told me that before? Who do you want us to interview, or who do you want them to interview, Roxby? Or are you just telling them to interview somebody? Who are they going to interview? That's what I want to know. She just wants us to do all the work, huh?
All the work on our own.
And,
Go ahead.
Liza J also said two things in regards to that. She agreed that seeing Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormon versus Christianity would be great, and said that Scientology is really big there in New York City. So it definitely seems like that is a need. And I do think that's important, looking at that with this topic that we've been talking about. You know, where can people help? Identifying the needs is one of the most crucial things to finding where you can help, and also seeing what intrigues you, because that's what we're called here to be, is an answer to the questions. And so finding those questions is really important. So I think that's awesome. Thank you guys so much for the requests and the support.
So as far as the apologetic side goes, what sort of resources or books should be focused on?
Well, you know, first of all, just a bit about reading. Reading is essential. And really, if a person can do it and, you know, take sacrifice, getting some schooling at some level is so important. Look, not everyone can. I get it. Okay. Not everyone needs to. So there's not a diss to anyone, but I'm just saying, the younger you are, the more likely you can do it, and it's worth it. The reason I say that is because a big part of what you do when you go to seminary and whatnot is reading. And the good thing about the reading is you're essentially forced to do it. You're forced into the discipline. Very, very few people have proper enough discipline to read the amount that we need to read to be as sharp as we do. And we also don't always know what the best resources are. And also, we don't always do so in a sustained fashion where we read on one topic in depth. So I'm going to actually start out there and say, look, if you're thinking about going to some school of some kind that'll get you sharper on your philosophy from a Christian perspective, I believe you should focus on, or your theology, your apologetics, do it. Don't delay, do it. Places are lowering their prices right now and doing more and more virtual stuff. Now is the time, people. So that's a great resource. And then you may be like, well, they don't teach the apologetic issues. Yeah, they don't teach Hebrew Israelism. You know, they don't teach how to combat that at school. What you do is you get the tools and the stuff, and then you apply it to your context, right? So that's one thing. But then, you know, there's lots of great book lists. You know, you just put in top apologetic books. I did a show one time, it was top 50 apologetic books, I think. And, there's a lot of good stuff. I do think it's fundamental. You know, I mentioned Greg Kokel earlier. Everyone does need to read tactics. I'm going to promote Greg Bonson, Always Ready. I think those two things really go good together. And then sort of a general apologetics book. I would recommend John's Frame books called Apologetics, and it's for second edition. First edition is Apologetics for the Glory of God. But if that's not your cup of tea, maybe you want to get even the Josh and Sean McDowell, Evidence That Demands a Verdict, or even William Lane Craig's, you know, Reasonable Faith. A book like kind of has all the topics inside of it, and you kind of, that way you get some of the basic information. And then I do think it's important to start focusing on things. I realize we want to answer everything and we get embarrassed when we don't know the answer to some science question. But at the end of the day, I think the best work is done by specialists. And specialists maybe means you got 2 or 3 things you focus on. But really, the best thing to do is to focus on a few things and just be like, this is what I'm going to do. And the reason why you maybe focus on something is because it's important, and also it's passionate for you. And you know, your specialists, what you specialize in can change during your career, right? It can change, and that's okay. That's something that's done. So my point by saying that is, once you sort of realize, okay, here's a key area, then you seek out books that kind of focus on some of those areas. So I'm going to deal with the thorny issues in the Old Testament. So, that the answer for that person doing that kind of apologetics for what books they should read is a little bit different. You need to go get Paul Copan's God Among Monster and start there and get his bibliography and then just and go from there, right? And then if a person says, well, I'm going to focus on New Testament Christology, that's a different set of things. If a person says, I'm going to focus on textual criticism. You see what I'm saying? And so I really think it's important to kind of read, especially in those areas you're kind of going after. Now, I realize not everybody knows, but that really is the best thing to do, just to bear down and really go after a few key things, because we've all got limited time and no one is an expert in everything. And if you think about any college class you've ever taken, guess what? It's usually, at least should be, taught by a person who's a specialist in that area. And maybe they have some other things they know about, but they're probably not a great car mechanic. Maybe they are, but most likely, if you're going to learn how to fix cars, you would have a different teacher. And so my point is, become that. And that's okay. And you may say, well, then everyone won't. Yeah, you just got to deal with everyone's. It's not going to be for everybody. That's just how it is. And so be all right with that. And so I think it's important to really, boom, go in a few key areas. And so I do encourage, actually, in the year 2020, specialization. I think there's enough of us that we can specialize. And I think that's important, And so read in those areas.
No, I agree. And I don't actually think for most people that a traditional college degree is what is needed, but I do highly recommend classes. And I do think that there are lots of opportunities for many people who maybe even can't afford them. For example, for me, and I would highly recommend this for anyone who is still either in high school or just graduated. I found opportunities where I got complete scholarships for classes over the summer, and I got to take Old Testament survey and New Testament survey and be in different programs that were so influential and incredible for my growth in Christ, and really connecting with other members of the body of Christ and really seeing what it means to live as the body and to be the church. And I think those are incredible opportunities that really aren't talked about too terribly much. We often think of college as something that, it's just so expensive and we have to do all the normal classes too. And I think that there are a lot of things that are overlooked. Another thing for people who might be struggling with finance as far as classes go is there are actually lots of free resources online, free college classes taught by professional college teachers. Often it's just whatever they're sharing at their universities, they will also put online. And one of these great resources is Christian University, and that's actually being posted in the chat. And what they do is they have awesome courses that you can take the full college courses. There are teachers there to help you go through it, and you don't have to pay anything. The only time that you would ever have monetary involvement is either if you want to donate or if you actually want your credentials of bachelor's or master's or doctorate or whatever it is after you've already taken the classes. And if you don't want to spend that money or don't have that money to spend, you still have all that great resources and that great knowledge, and you can go and use that without needing necessarily that certificate, that paper, because you have everything you need to equip yourself still.
No doubt. Yeah. It is, in a manner of speaking, easier than ever.
Yeah. It's incredible.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So, Vocab, got a quick question for you as well as for the rest of us, just to let everyone know what's going on. What is next on your to-do list for videos or content?
Well, I really do got to, plug away little by little with this book. Currently, I'm doing a lot of work on the area of reincarnation. So I've actually written some on it. Haven't put it out yet, but for future inclusion in a book. And the reason why reincarnation is a certain segment of the Hebrew Israelite adherents do hold to a version of reincarnation. I'm actually working on setting up a debate with a guy next, actually it'd be this Saturday coming up, working on setting up a debate with the Hebrew Israelite on reincarnation. We'll see if that happens or not. And I think that's important. So I kind of focus on one specific topic within Hebrew Israelism. Obviously, reincarnation becomes important because a lot of other people believe in it, and certain people actually try to point to certain Bible passages to prove that it's true. And so I'm dealing with those Bible passages a lot, right? And so I've done some street engagement with some Hebrew Israelites as well on that. And so that's one particular thing popping. We're in the middle of Islamicize Me Special Edition on my channel, youtube.com/Vocab Malone. So what I'm doing is every Tuesday and Thursday, so one will be on tomorrow at 9 o'clock East Coast, 6 o'clock West Coast. We put out one of the installments of Islamicize Me with some minor enhancements and modifications made by my favorite editor, Bry from The Shy. And what he does is add little things. And so if you haven't seen it 2 years ago, you get to see it or revisit it. And now that we have premieres, we didn't have premieres back then. It would just upload and you would talk to each other in the comment section. Now you can do so in the live chat like people are doing right now in the live chat of this video. So that's important to make sure you catch those Islamicize Me special editions. I believe like we're approaching day 10 or 11, about to do the one I think where we talk about pictures and dogs. I think those ones are coming up. And then we've got after that, I'd like to actually put the Boom Boom Rooms on my channel because we're almost done with season 1. We've got 4 more episodes to post, and then season 1 of the Boom Boom Room will be done. The episodes are actually already recorded. One of them is edited. The other 3 still need to be edited. So the work's been done, but sort of quarantine. But really, it's David Wood. He's got to get on those. But of course, I'm involved with those. I'm excited to see about the next thing. And then I gave my editors a list of about 10 videos to work on. And so we're kind of plugging away with a couple of different videos right now, including one that's one of these videos that are a little bit different than my live streams because I focus on live streaming, right? The video will be a kind of sit down produced video on reincarnation. And that would be probably maybe 20 minutes. And so we're working on that because the filming is already done. One thing that recently came out that's also important is I just got a new channel trailer. My man Conman Mike did a great job on that, and so that's I encourage people to check out. And as well, another new thing that happened in the channel is we finally got channel memberships where you can join and get little special emojis and badges and stickers and all that, and that helps as well. So that's important. And the last thing I'll say that is popping off is tonight I'm doing a live stream on the issue of violence within the militant factions of Hebrew Israelism. So just like we wouldn't say that all Muslims are violent, of course not all Hebrew Israelites are violent, not even a question, but there are some extremist factions, if you want to call them that, and I'm going to deal with some of the ideological problems and actually some current events where some of this has actually popped up in the news over the past year, some things people may not know about. I'm going to be discussing tonight. So it'll be a sensitive topic issue tonight, but it'll also be very important. So that's happening as well. So that's what I got going on that I can remember off the top of my head. If I forgot something or someone, forgive me. My bad.
No, sounds good. My mother, actually, surprisingly enough, absolutely loves the Boom Boom Room. She loves it so much. So,
but everyone in the family also loved Islamicize Me the first time around, and I don't know how many times we watched that when it first came out. And then you had it up on your channel, and I thought that was cool, but I didn't make it a priority because I've been watching all your other stuff. But I figured, yeah, I've already seen these, and then I was like, oh, whatever. I should probably jump on there and talk to everyone, watch these again, help give some support that way. And then yeah, I realized they were special edition. I was like, oh, that's epic.
Yeah, they're faster. The edits are quicker, and so the episodes, generally speaking, are a little shorter. So they're not longer, they're not expanded, they're actually shortened. Like, but then also there's these little enhancements, little sound effects, or sometimes subtle, sometimes not subtle, and a couple little, audio, visual effects as well. And actually, we tweaked the audio, so the audio is a little tighter because some of the audio was echoey first time around. So little things like that. George Lucas did special edition of Star Wars, and that could be good or bad. I don't know if that's exactly what this is, but overall, it's round 2, man. That's what it is. It's round 2. So come and join the fun.
Yeah, your editor did a really good job with that, and we've been absolutely loving going through and seeing all the Easter eggs and all that. So it's been really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So what's up for you? What's next for you?
So for me, oh man, I've got such a long list. I right now am trying to work on a second video on Ravi Zacharias that I'm hoping to get up this Friday. Well, before this Friday at noon, if not at. Kind of in tribute to him and making him the next superhero of the Apologetics Empire. So I am making him bang in One Punch Man. Just a little spoiler. just as Vocab is Moomin Rider and David Wood is One Punch Man. And after that, we have got What Do You Meme and his lovely wife. They are also going to be a part of the Apologetics Empire superhero series. And so we've got characters lined up for them. And so they're also on the queue. I've also got a video talking about perfectionism and a video talking about, how do we find our purpose and our gifting and our calling? Because that's something I've struggled with a lot. And I know that a lot of others, of course, as we've talked about earlier in this video, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormonism. So got a full plate, but I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, we've got lots of cool stuff coming up.
So on my plate, I got, first of all, I finally finished the Patreon that people have been asking me about. So I've got a walkthrough I need to do for them. And then I've got the art of discussion, which ought to be a fun one, just talking about tricks and tips I've learned over many, many, many debates. As well as Mr. Phil Fox, who is in the discussion. I know I saw you earlier. You can't hide from me. We will be doing a collaboration. He's got very, very interesting insights into Native American culture, as well as information around that. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And then finally, I've got my giveaway coming the 14th of next month. So that's all I got on the plate for now. I don't have it all worked out.
Yeah, and that giveaway is an active giveaway. So everyone, make sure you check that out if you are interested. It's a really cool laptop case. And so, yeah, and that is ongoing. And I forgot to mention in this, speaking of collaborations and Mr. Phil Fox, I've got 2 interviews this next 7 days as well. And that is with JMD Apologetics and Adherent Apologetics. So now it's on for the fun part for everyone. Yes.
The Q&A. So get your questions into the live chat if you haven't already. And Vocab, if you see anything that is interesting,
all right,
pin it out. If not, she'll find something interesting, I swear.
All right, I'm with him.
So let's see here. I should probably give her the control over it, though. Here, I say something, and then she just doesn't get control.
Let's see. Oh, we've got a new sub. Thank you guys so much. That's Deanna Higo. Did I say that right?
I'm going to say Diane. I'm going to say Diane.
Misspoke, my bad.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing because they got the E, you know?
Yeah, I just saw that. So Diane, is it Higo? Thank you so much for joining.
I like to say it Higo because it's like it's like you say hi to someone and you give the salutation and then you take off. Higo. You know, it's like all in one.
Sounds like a custom experience.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Carm M says Vocab for President 2020. Hey, I'd vote for that. Except it already is 2020, so you better get on that ball.
Get hurry up.
Yeah. Well, I'll just tell people, you know, if you don't vote for me, you ain't. No, I won't do that. Yeah, I don't think I can do much good as president. And I think I'd do better as president of the Glee Club or something like that. You know what? Actually, you're right. I should become apologetics president, Apologetics Empire president of the Apologetics Empire. I'll be with that. And
that
it counts on who you're running against.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking about that, I'm going to have a bit of a hard time discussing that.
Well, we need a president, you know, not a dictator.
Shots fired.
I'm the man for the job when it comes to that. You know.
Well, hey, Vocab, if you want to be president of the Apologetics Empire, you're going to have to get on that Discord thing. I hear you've been requested and putting that off, so.
Yeah, I'll just I'll send an ambassador out. You know, like the president, an ambassador to Haiti. I'll send an ambassador out to Discord.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So Mr. Phil Fox said, how do we become super cool like Vocab?
Well, the Hebrew Israelites, they don't think I'm very cool. The Muslims don't think I'm cool. Sometimes my own kids don't think I'm cool. So, you know, I don't know. I'm glad Mr. Phil Fox thinks so. I mean, I think he's cool too, but there's a lot of people out there that don't think I'm very cool. You know, they call me Slow Cab and No Jab Malone and no Jabs Cologne and Faux Crap and what else do they call me? No Swag Malone. These are all the names of the Hebrew Israelites. I'm trying to remember all the other names they've given me, but just so you know, not everyone, you can't make all the people happy all the time. How's it go? I don't remember what it is, but whatever it is, it's true.
Yeah, if the world hated Christ, well, the world hates us because they hated Christ first. But we are not of the world. We are just in the world. We are aliens.
I actually had a song about that when I was doing a lot of hip hop.
Yeah, I saw that.
Called UFO. It's called UFO. How's that? How it goes? Strange, weird, odd. I guess weird. UFO. Something like that.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool because that's something I used to like quote all the time. That Bible verse that talks about, we're aliens of this world, and no one else really seemed to know what I was talking about. So I saw that.
My favorite line from that song was, it says, well, I said, we've been scorned and burned again and again. They booed us like they practiced Zen. That's one of my favorite lines because I thought that was kind of clever. Zen Buddhism is a certain form of Buddhism, so Zen Buddhist. So we've been scorned and burned again and again. They booed us like they practiced Zen. I love that line all the time. So yeah, that's in that song.
Yeah, you come up with some really creative lines. I think those are so cool. So going back a bit, Nate2D2 said, vocab, empires don't have presidents. You should be emperor.
Well, I guess he's right. There is an emperor I liked, and it was not Emperor Palpatine. The emperor of Cobra's empire was a man named Serpentor. And the way they made Serpentor in the fictional universe of G.I. Joe is they combed all the tombs and graves of all the military leaders and political geniuses from all the centuries, and they took all their DNA and put it together in sort of a DNA milkshake and made the ultimate emperor out of the DNA of Genghis Khan, Julius Caesar, and everybody else mixed in there, which I thought was actually a really cool idea. And maybe they could do that with vocab 2.0. And I'll be the emperor of that, take all the DNA from the best Christian apologists, put it together, and then voila, you know what I'm saying? I'd be down with that.
Tasty.
Yeah, really. So Mr. Phil Fox said, where do we find a sweet hat like my man, your brother in Christ?
eBay.
eBay.
So I found this one years ago.
Yeah, it's a Stetson, but I don't even think they carry them on the website anymore because I was trying to get one myself too.
It's gone through a lot.
Yeah.
And it's still ticking. Much like me. Kind of.
Well, I thought he was going to ask about my hat, the Arizona Diamondbacks hat, but I guess not.
Yeah, we see the love. Just for the cool hat, though. Roxby says, at Vocab Malone, what got you focused on reincarnation?
Well, the thing about reincarnation is it keeps on coming back again. Well, in all seriousness, for a long time, there was these Hebrew Israelites who kept on saying, if you really want to throw vocab off his game, you just ask him about reincarnation. He can't handle reincarnation. You take reincarnation to vocab, you won't know what to say. These wacky tacky Christians can't say nothing. So after a while, I kind of got tired of hearing that. I was like, you know what? I'll take reincarnation to the Hebrew Israelites. They think that I can't. I mean, I don't know why they thought that. They're just making that up. I mean, who can't? I mean, so I was like, all right, now it's time. And I hadn't really heard a lot of people exposing the fact that a lot of Hebrew Israelites believe in reincarnation and have their own really wacky iteration of it. So I was like, all right, you know what? Let's do some reincarnation. And I found it very helpful to understand some Bible passages better. And now I realize, how, I already knew, but now I even realize more how weak their version of this doctrine is. And so it's really something I can take to them that None of them really that believe in it, because they don't all believe in it. The ones who do aren't really going to be able to answer. And so now it's like a strong thing, you know, like, hey, you guys want to talk about reincarnation? I know the passages you go to. It's not going to work. Let's have that conversation. This is good because it'll just show we've got a lot of unbiblical doctrines floating around in your system. So let's deal with the reincarnation then. And I find it fascinating anyway, you know, the reasons why people believe in reincarnation. You know what I mean? The whole thing is I've never personally understood the appeal. I have to think another way to understand the appeal. I kind of, you know, could kind of understand the appeal if I thought a different way, but I don't get it. But it's important to see that people believe in it, and they try to use certain passages. And so let's deal with those passages and find out what they really say. And the Bible is not teaching anything like reincarnation, you know? And so it's good to bring out. And then people, when they deal with other people, like say a New Ager who kind of utilizes the Bible when it's convenient, then they'll know some of those same passages and kind of go in those. So it's not just relevant to Hebrew Israelism. They say, according to a 2009 survey, I know that's 11 years old, but that's the most recent and reputable one I could find, that 25% of Americans, according to Pew at that time, believe in reincarnation, and 24% of professing Christians actually say they believe in some version of reincarnation. And so you realize it's an important issue, not just within the Hebrew Israelites, but larger culture as well, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't realize that number was that high. I mean, I knew that it was, you know, a big belief, but not, you know, like a quarter of everyone.
Yeah, and so that's 2009. I'd like to see updated figures, but, you know, Pew is relatively reliable. One problem that you do find when you run into any religious research data is they do tend to over-include who's a Christian. So, like, someone just says, I'm a born-again Christian. Okay, they're a Christian. The doctrinal components are not really looked at to find out, does this person match any normal definition of a Christian? So almost always in these surveys, Christians are over-counted. And I think that's important to remember, because you got people running around, oh, evangelicals are 25% of the country. No. Evangelicals are not 25% of the country. It's probably literally never been that. What it is there's something called the halo effect researchers have to deal with. And that's basically where people are like, oh, I go to church, I believe, and they really don't. But it's when they're answering a survey, the halo effect takes place. And so you have to deal with, but it says professing Christians. That means in some way they said to the researchers, yes, and then said, we hold a reincarnation. So that's the 24% figure. So that's fascinating as well, to think of that. And so, you know, it is important. And, you know, these ideas, my guess is you become more popular, because when we talk about secularization, it's true, there's a certain amount of secularization that sets in, but people end up becoming spiritual in other ways, worshiping other things, coming up with other beliefs to fill the void of maybe a more generalized Christian understanding of what happens after you die. You know what I mean? So these are important questions to tackle. I specifically do it in the context of Hebrew Israelites. And so far we've seen by our street encounters and lack of being able to find opponents to debate that they're really not so bold about it as they once claimed. And I think that's good to see too, because it shows House of Cards in full effect.
Absolutely. I think this is a question for you, actually.
Do I have a TikTok account? Liza J wants to know. No, I do not have a TikTok account. There are certain family members who have been trying to suck me in, but I have not yet done that. I am still struggling to catch up with my other social medias, but if there is an interest in that, I would consider it. Yeah, but right now my focus is catching up on Instagram, because I used to be pretty big on there. I used to have accounts that were 5K, like 3 that were 3K, and then I kind of just was like, this is way too much work, and gave up on it a bit. But I'm trying to grow that again, because I know there's a lot of people there that need to be reached. It seems like that might be the case with TikTok too, though. So we will see. I will do some research into that and see what I can do.
So here is one for vocab. This is a good one. In fact, I've got this question. Okay.
Vocab Malone. How long have you been an apologist? Miriam Mendoza wants to know.
Yeah, great question. When I was towards the end of my high school years, I realized, whoa, I'm becoming an adult, and I say that I hold to Christianity, but I better make sure what's going on. And so I spent an inordinate amount of time of really diving in to books, especially dealing with issues related to creation and Genesis and things like that. And I read a lot, especially this one summer, and then it kind of carried over into the next year. And I realized that Christian truth was built upon a solid foundation. So I had that sort of personal knowledge at a new level. But I also realized, hey, people need to know about this. This is good stuff that I've been looking at and reading. And I realized I don't think a lot of folks at my church know about a lot of this really cool stuff. And so I talked to this other guy. He was an older guy than me, and he was a pharmacist. And so he had an interest in scientific questions and whatnot. And he had done, he was ahead of me. He had done reading and had an ability to understand these things. And next thing I knew, him and I were doing an adult Sunday school class on creation apologetics. And it went really well. And I was like, whoa, I'm like barely a kid. And I'm with this other guy and I'm teaching adults. And I'm like, what? And it was like really cool. And I realized how helpful it was for everybody and how much I enjoyed it. So it kind of went from sort of my own self to that. And I just kept on along those lines, studying the Bible, going out street evangelizing. But I don't think I would have considered myself an apologist proper yet. But about about 12 years ago at this point, I think, if I got my dates right, is when it became public. And so I kind of mark it by that. So it may have been sort of 12 years off and on, because people wonder, my job. I have a full-time job or a part-time job. So my full-time job is not apologetics or anything. So, I'm working, then I'm doing this, right? Well, about 12 years ago, we kind of went public with it. So me and a buddy of mine, we got a radio show together, did a lot of apologetics on it. I started blogging regularly, and then some debates started happening, and then just kind of went on and on from there. So off and on for about 12 years, I think.
12 years.
Awesome. Thank you for keeping up the good fight and good work. Brad Robinson wants to know, when superhero characters for Your Brother in Christ and Elle are coming out? That is a good question. We've actually planned out what these are each going to be in the One Punch Man character world. Mine should be coming out in the next month, hopefully. It's the video that I mentioned as far as figuring out what we're called to and how to fulfill our purpose. So that is when I'll be doing mine, hopefully. Yeah, here in the next month. And Your Brother in Christ's birthday is coming up in about 2 months. So that would be a cool thing to do, a birthday bash over. Kind of celebrate him a little bit and do his. So we have another question from Daryl Newton, which is an amazing author.
He's a good Christian author that we've worked with before.
Yes. And he writes sci-fi. So he asks, what is the strongest argument for the resurrection of Christ?
Were you all answering this? What's the deal with this one?
Sure.
Popcorn it. I'd say for me, it would be the historical evidence of what happened afterwards, how the apostles reacted, how the word of God spread through Rome afterwards. I'd say that's the strongest argument. Just seeing their reactions, because they were fearful, and then all of a sudden, for no secular reason, they decided to be bold enough to go to their horrendous deaths.
Yeah, we see a lot of people in different religions, such as Islam, willing to die for faith that they believe is true. But the difference is that's something that they were told. The first Christians, this wasn't something that they learned from someone else. You're only willing to die for your beliefs if you truly believe them. And they were the first-hand accounts. They saw that his death and resurrection had happened, and yet they were all willing, because of this, to go to their very painful deaths. I mean, as far as I believe, John was the only one who escaped that martyrdom. And so if they were not truly convinced that Christ had died and was resurrected, I highly doubt that they would be willing to do that. Not only that, but think about how much Paul lost. I mean, he was the best of the best of the best, and yet he was willing to lay it all down just to spread the truth of Christ. Another thing that I love, it was actually a quote from The Case for Christ, which is an awesome book and movie by Lee Strobel. I believe the book title is slightly different, but where he was doing his interview trying to disprove Christianity and actually ended up proving it. And he was talking to an atheist professor, I believe, and she was talking about how there were so many sightings of Christ after the resurrection. And she said it would have been a greater miracle for a mass hallucination than for the actual resurrection of Christ, because of how many people said that they saw the same thing.
Yeah, and then my answer would just be aligned with all that, is that I think ultimately it's helpful to realize that God has given humanity an authoritative and reliable account in the New Testament documents. And so as we start off realizing and recognizing they're true, I think it's helpful to do alternative explanations and see if they work. And so similar to what you said in the beginning, brother in Christ, you said, what happened afterwards, and what it is if you try to posit anything else in the place of the resurrection in history at that point, let's call it the variable X. What is the variable that makes all these different things happen and plus explains all this different data? You'll find out that nothing works. And I don't think that's an overstatement. Now, so it's work to go through each one and look at it little by little, and that's where the debates and the writing come in. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, that's a true fact. And so it's almost like, guys, you're stuck with the fact that Jesus rose from the dead. And then where do we go from there? What do we do from there? Because guess what, folks? You can realize Jesus rose from the dead and still be a disbeliever. Those folks who were guarding the tomb, doesn't seem like they all believed. In fact, they were willing to lie about what happened. The Sanhedrin, the folks who, besides Joseph and Nicodemus that we know, they knew, they heard the account from the guards and were like, well, let's just tell a lie about it. We got to clamp this thing down. They didn't just believe all of a sudden. And so it's a fascinating thing to think you can even realize the historical reality and still not believe. And so there is a spiritual component. However, I think it's helpful for us to recognize, these parallel accounts, Matthew 28, Mark 16, Luke 24, John 20. That's where you find them. Those are actually 4 different documents by 4 different authors, 2 of whom we have very good reason to believe were direct eyewitnesses, Matthew and John, 1 whom knew eyewitnesses and spoke to them, Mark and Luke. Not only that, Apostle Paul, there's another example of a document. We think of the New Testament as one book. Really, it's 27, but then even from the 27, there's different sources there. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul. Plus, you go to James, you start to add up the writers, and you realize, what's up with all this early attestation to the fact that this man rose from the dead? And you try to put something else in its place, it just will not work. And so we can essentially kind of knock down alternative theories one by one and realize, thank God, we do have a reliable, trustworthy, and authoritative account when we read the Gospels. And why would we accept something else as superior when we have first century witnesses to this reality? We have a superior witness historically to anything else that would come after. So we can go to Tacitus and see what he said. We can go to Pliny the Younger and Suetonius. We can see what they said. We can look at Juvenal's comments if we want. Okay. But those are sort of corroborative secondary sources. The best, without a doubt, are the Gospels and the other relevant New Testament documents, because even though Matthew, Mark, Luke, John are first there in the canon, which makes sense, they should be, as far as when things got finalized, it's most likely that First Thessalonians, James, those two books were the earliest. In fact, as early as 45, notwithstanding the fact that portions of the scripture, even by people who don't even sort of believe, have been recognized, go back pretty early as far as how close to the events they are. For example, a portion of 1 Corinthians 15 maybe can be dated to 35. And you just realize, praise God, that he has left such a mark. And so we have a real strong place to go forward and then make the implications heard that folks must repent and believe on Jesus Christ, the risen Son of God, who is coming back again. That's right.
Amen.
I also did a video on this live stream on the historical evidence for Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. So got another one here.
And that video was pretty cool. But yeah, this comment is from D New. This is pretty cool. I didn't know you guys were married. Awesome. At your brother in Christ at Elle. Everyone's been saying this lately, and I think it's so funny because they're just like, what did we do wrong? Because I don't know how many people this past month have messaged me and been like, oh, I totally didn't realize your brother in Christ was your husband. You talk about them both, but wow. What? But yep, we're married. It's pretty awesome. I agree. Let's see. I know we've gotten so many questions. I'm sorry anyone who we've missed so far. Been coming in a lot. And also thank you to everyone who's been putting links in the description. So if you guys are interested in any of these resources, you might have to scroll a bit, but they are in the live chat.
Vocab, does any comment stand out to you? Or question?
Let me see. I've been looking, and I mainly just see, a lot of my homies talking about each other. Oh, hey, we got Keith Curry. Yeah, I think that'd be an interesting one. It looks like we got probably most likely a Hebrew Israelite sympathizer, but I'm interested in Keith Curry's question there.
Okay. Let me read this one and then go ahead and pull that one up. Are you able to pull it up on your end?
Me? No, I don't think
Okay.
I can't. I mean, I can see it. I could read it, but I can't put it on the screen or nothing like that.
Okay. Well, Sean Gregory's question is, so what would you guys say your 1,000 meter spectrum looks like concerning on apologetics on YouTube? Or what would you guys like to see with apologetics on YouTube?
I guess me personally, I love seeing how quick we can reach so many people. I've really been blessed through this, just being able to reach out across the world and touch people in India and evangelize that way and talk to Christians who are there, who are in discussions with Muslims, and being able to counsel them in being able to handle the discussion in order to be the most effective that they can be. I think that is a beautiful thing on YouTube. I think, unfortunately, YouTube will eventually get sick of the apologists on there because, let's be honest, Christians are easy to attack. So we will have to look at other alternatives, and eventually we'll have to move. But if we continue to grow at the rate that we're seeing, this massive bloom of apologists, this will be world changing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that a lot of people breeze over is, even if you've only got 12 subs on YouTube, I mean, that's how many Jesus had. Other people came and went, and lots of people listened, but, not many were that committed. And, if you've got 100, that's bigger than, most small churches and most local churches. Every life that you can touch is so important. And so I'm not really sure what you mean about the meter spectrum, but I would love to see more people encouraged by the ministries that they are doing and not give up so easy and keep on pushing on, like Vocab was talking about earlier, because every life matters, and you might not be able to change the whole world, but you can change someone's whole world. So here is the question that you were talking about earlier, or the comment you were talking about earlier, Vocab, by Keith Curry. If you want to go ahead and read that.
Why can't you just go to Dante Fortson and Teo Ministries and come to a legitimate conversation with the true people of the covenant? It is very sad. Vocab Malone is still attempting to discredit the Hebrew people and never prove that they are in error. If you can provide historical evidence like Teo Ministries and Dante Fortson. Right. So I see Keith is a supporter of Dante. A few things about this, Keith. One is, I don't know if you're aware, there had been some conversations between apologists from Teo and Dante, for example, with Faithful to God. And I don't think it went all that very well for them. So I don't necessarily think this would be a good thing for, especially Teo. I think it'd be much more difficult for even him. So I don't think it'd be a good thing for them, but I do think it should happen. So I agree. The problem is with Dante, for example, is if you go back earlier this year, what he did is he made a list of requirements of what it would take to talk to him. And I believe one of them was that to have this legitimate conversation, you had to call these universities and ask them a certain set of questions first and make a video of you phone calling them. And then I think you had to be black as well. I don't know where that document is. Maybe he still has it up. It was utterly ridiculous. I've never seen such a silly set of preconditions to have a conversation with anybody. So Dante's built a wall around himself with these ridiculous preconditions. I think that's ultimately key. To be frank with you, Dante is a coward at heart. That's why he quickly calls women like Nefertiti ratchet, a woman who was trained and has a law degree and is incredibly articulate, intelligent, bright, quick, and passionate. He just goes ahead and calls her ratchet. And I see the way he deals with women, especially the disrespectful manner. Not only that, Dante has strong trolling characteristics. He said that when he initially kept on coming after me, that his ultimate goal is really to get Eric Mason involved. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I kind of tend to think, I don't think he's as strategic as he thinks as he is. But my point by that is Dante doesn't seem to be a man who argues from what you call a place of good faith. Good faith means there's conversation. There's a legitimate desire to have the conversation there. If you're just trolling people to get other people involved, it kind of makes you look like a drama queen, not someone who's really engaging out of good faith. That's a problem Dante has. And it shows up in his social media behavior. So Keith, again, I'd be very willing to talk to Dante. And I even told him what I wanted to debate. And him and Teo said, no, I want to talk about their 400-year prophecy. They said no to that. So just so you know, Keith, I put it out there several times. I want to have a conversation about their false 400-year prophecy. Neither of them will do it unless something's changed. And now they're saying they will, and they really will, not just say they will. Then what is it? What is it? So I would love to have that conversation, right? But his social media behavior is a bit odd too. The man tags me more than once a week on Facebook. And it's irrelevant things. It'll be like some white racist guy who beat up somebody, and he'll be like, hey, is Vocab Malone going to call this out racist? If he's not, he's racist. This really silly stuff. I don't see how that's trying to have a real conversation. He blocked me so much. I made a joke and said, bro, am I your new muse? And he actually said yes. I was like, bro, that's strange. I never heard a dude say that about another dude. He's like, well, look up the definition and you'll see. And so I actually had to block him. He was tagging me so much. Now, once a week, he does the @mention thing for me on YouTube. He constantly does it. So my reading of Dante is that he feels one of the primary ways to grow his channel is to create tussles with people, but he never really wants to get in the ring. He wants to do a little pre-recorded video where he does a PowerPoint presentation and says, hello, everybody. This is Dante Fortson. Buy my new book. It helps support the channel. I've been an apologist for 20 years. And I mean, I can't tell you, man, the guy with the mouth sounds, but I think really what he wants to do is to do those and then act as if he's engaging with the back and forth and then do another pre-record video. I don't think Dante Fortson, and let me be frank here, wants the smoke of having to answer my questions direct face to face in a Q&A. And you know why? Just like Jack told Tom, he can't handle the truth. And so I'd be willing to do that. Dante's not willing to do that. So you guys can hold him up as your Goliath, but Dante is not ready to face David. And that's just being honest. And that's why he builds a wall with the silly preconditions and likes pre-recorded videos. And he'll probably make a video out of this because he wants to do another pre-recorded video, but he doesn't want that real conversation dialogue. And if he did, Dante, please stop with the name calling. It's just like, you wonder why I'm going after him hard. It's because the way he talks about people. You know, everyone who disagrees with him is a false teacher and a liar. No, we just disagree with you, bro. Come on, man. But Keith, if you could get Teo or Dante to do a one-on-one with me for real, or actually a 2-on-1, it could be both of them. Keith Curry, I will give you $25. I don't have a bunch of money. I'm not rich, but I'll PayPal you or cash up you $25. That'll be your little, like a finder's fee. You know, that's enough for like one meal or something. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not kidding. I'll give you $25 if you really can make it happen for real. I don't mean putting me in contact with them. I mean making it really actually happen. You can do that. You get $25. I'd like to see that. In the meantime, though, just wait for his next pre-recorded video because I think that's all we're going to get out of Dante.
Well, guys, you heard it here first. Some serious smackdown. Okay.
I do think it's really funny, though, because it seems like the people who are constantly saying, oh, like, why don't you just believe the truth? And, like, are also the people who are spreading lies, and the people who are quick to call false teachers are the ones who are, you know, like you said, having those 400-year false prophecies, and they're really lucky we're not living by the Old Testament law because that would not be good for them. But I really do think it's just like, how do you get away with spreading such lies that have been disproven and you still keep doing it? Like,
the 99 and 1 rule.
Yeah.
99
really
people
is.
believe you, and the one person that doesn't believe you gets shouted down by the other 99.
Yeah.
Of course, with Dante and his camp who follows him, I don't literally mean the Hebrews like camp, but he sort of has a camp of people who follow him. They think that's what he's doing, and it's really sad. Dante will do things like this. And the reason I'm being aggressive is because of outright deception bothers me. It's a violation of the 10 Commandments with these folks who claim to keep the law. And it bothers me when someone will outright deceive and then claim they're doing truth and doing something for God. So he'll do something like put a source on the screen, read it, and then, you know, he took a screenshot of the source. So it's just like a picture of the source. He'll take the screenshot and crop out the bottom part of the paragraph. And the bottom part of the paragraph directly contradicts what he just read, because he's not reading the entirety of this thing. And so sometimes I joke around and I say, Dante, quote, I call him a nickname. It's Dante, it gets cut off right there, Fortson, because he'll tell his people, oh, well, it gets cut off right there. But if you go to the Google Book source, as Nefertiti did, and you look at the actual place that you can bring up from Google Books because they allow you a certain amount of preview, you see, no, there's a rest of the page here. Dante cropped it so the end is, why do you do that? He does stuff like that again and again and again. That's the kind of thing we're dealing with. But the audience watches it and they're like, oh, Dante's bringing up these scholarly sources. He's bringing it. And then Nefertiti, I've mentioned her a few times because her work is excellent. She did a video where she didn't even go to extra sources. She said, I'm going to only look at his sources he brought up and find out if they match his claims. And so she went to all the sources he went to, found out all of them said something different than what he was really saying. They disagreed with him in some way. And so used his own sources to discredit the narrative he was painting. His followers were so blind to not be able to see this. And this is where we realize, ladies and gentlemen, because I know I'm talking smack, but ultimately this is spiritual warfare. Because you see the deception is deep, and I believe it's even demonic at times, honestly, frankly. His followers said, oh, look at this horrible work by Nefertiti. This woman didn't even bring out any new sources. She couldn't bring out any sources of her own. And her goal here was what she did, which is to use his sources to debunk his claims, to show he's not properly utilizing them because he doesn't know what he's doing, or he does and he's deceptive. Their response is, you didn't bring out any new sources. They're literally missing what's happening. It's like you're literally not seeing what's taking place in front of your eyes. And that's where you understand spiritual blindness is a real thing. And so we got to keep on doing the work and pray for the Lord to open up hearts, because that's the only way it's going to happen. And I see that really heavy with the folks who follow Dante. I really see that. So he, to be honest, he's essentially good at deceiving people. And it's a real shame. And that's why I know he will never have the kind of dialogue that this person is talking about. He will never have it. And when I say never, I mean he will never do it. He won't do it. But I would love it if he would. That would be epic. That would be very important for people to see. But don't hold your breath, ladies and gentlemen, or else you might die of asphyxiation.
Well, we got a little bit of an increase here. Phil Fox offers to pay another $50 on top of Vocab's $25.
Hey!
So, but we really do see that in a lot of different groups using deception. Definitely in Islam. I just did a video yesterday on Yusuf and his proof that, Allah is in the Bible. Allah's mentioned in the Bible. Here's John 3:16.
Which I was like,
really?
what?
That one? I got a request from that because one of the Christians that I'm counseling and trying to help be better at debating Muslims literally sent me the video saying, hey, a Muslim pointing to this as reference that Allah is the same God in both the Bible and the Quran. And I like John 3:16, for Allah so loved the world that he gave his one and only begotten son, that whomsoever believes in him shall not perish. Allah's got a son?
And they were doing what you talked about, and Yusuf Estes actually like cropped it so the only thing you could see was for God so loved the world, and then of course like put black all over the rest of the screen. It was like, we all know this verse. Well, yeah, okay. And then when they did the translation, the only word that they didn't black out was Allah. So it was literally John 3:16, Allah. Like, that's not how you do studies or proof.
Well, I mean, haven't they read, in the Quran, Surah 17?
Verse 111.
Yeah, I mean, it literally says, and say, praise to Allah, who has not taken a son and who has had no partner in his dominion and no need of a protector out of weakness, and glorify him with great glorification. Now, that verse represents a straw manning of the eternal sonship of Christ, meaning they don't really, the author of the Quran didn't really understand what the sonship of Jesus was all about. But nonetheless, even from this misunderstood polemic against the sonship of Jesus, you can see you can't do that. So maybe Yusuf Estes missed that. I don't know.
He claims to have been a Christian, so
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why he redacted it and blacked it out like the CIA documents or something like that. I don't know what his deal is.
So, okay, one more comment real quick here, and I wanted to focus on this one.
So Mr. Phil Fox said, I was a pastor of a church of 17, including my wife and 2 daughters.
Second part here.
If you can make a difference to one person, that's a life well lived.
Absolutely. And as a husband, it is your responsibility for the spiritual welfare of your wife and children. That should be your primary focus. After that, yes, expand from that. But those are the obligations you took on as a husband. And we are in a world that a lot of dads do not take that seriously. And that sparks a lot of problems. A lot of the issues that we are currently seeing in our culture could have been easily solved if fathers would have taken the proper position in the family.
And we see the destruction of that in lots of things that you would have never thought, including like relationships with God, because if you don't have a good father figure to look up to, you don't really understand the father aspect of our Lord Abba Father. So, and then there was actually a comment continuing about the church too, from Gerard Perry, saying there were fewer than 24 people who made the trip from Ohio when my church was founded 45 years ago. So yeah, it really is like focus on who God has given you, focus on the responsibilities you've already been given. And of course, by all means, go and make disciples, follow what God has commanded, but do not be discouraged because of, your small numbers, because God works through everyone. And that is so important to remember. So thank you guys for sharing your personal experiences with those situations.
Yes. We do have one more thing here for you guys and for Vocab. Vocab doesn't know we did this, but we do have one more thing for you guys. But before we do that, thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you, Vocab, for joining us here. We really appreciate your ministry. We really appreciate what you're doing. Definitely the Boom Boom Rooms with David Wood is epic.
Yeah.
And if you guys have not checked those out, you are missing a lot of good humor. So without further ado, obvious baby distraction, activate.
Vocab Malone got the G.I. Joes. Yo, I got that soul like 70s old. Oh, solid gold. So I flow on and on like the ocean. Vocab Malone be roller coasting on a Saturday. Today, Sunday. Hit the highway, maybe one way, Yahweh. To Trinity. 3 or 1, somebody say, hey, like a horse is born. Hey! Little man was getting down to the freestyle.
It's so funny watching every time you come on. He's like, yeah, singing it.
That's awesome. Does he poop his pants when he's dancing? Oh, you guys disappeared.
Okay, well, we're ending anyway. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will say good night here.
God bless, guys.
Peace.